Welcome back, my dear students. So in this video we will be establishing the dual of Rn. So let me state it as the dual of Rn is Rn itself. So the dual means the set of all linear functionals defined on Rn. Here x is equal to Rn. So we have to find x dash, which is equal to Rn dash, which is the set of all bounded linear functionals defined on Rn. We will be proving that this is actually isomorphic to Rn itself, or we can define an isomorphism from Rn dash onto Rn. Okay, that's our objective. Now we know that Rn star should be equal to Rn dash. Rn star consists of the set of all linear functionals which is defined on Rn. Rn dash consists of the set of all bounded linear functionals which is defined on Rn. Rn dash should be equal to Rn star, meaning the set of all bounded every linear operator which is defined linear functional which is defined on Rn is always bounded. Since which is true, since we have already proved that every linear operator defined on a finite dimensional space is bounded. Since Rn is bounded, Rn is finite dimensional, we have a theorem that every linear operator defined on finite dimensional space is actually bounded. By theorem 2.7.8. Now, because of this, every linear operator on Rn is bounded. That's why Rn star should be equal to Rn dash. Okay, so Rn star is equal to Rn dash. Our objective is to prove that the dual of Rn is Rn itself. Or in other words, to obtain an isomorphism from Rn dash onto Rn. Before getting into much details about this, we have to have a knowledge about the linear functionals which is defined on Rn. So, for any x is equal to theta 1, theta 2, etc. theta n belongs to Rn, we have x is equal to theta 1 E1 plus theta 2 E2 plus etc. theta n En, where E1, E2, etc. En is a basis of Rn, or we can consider E1, E2, etc. En to be the standard basis. E1 is 1, 0, 0, 0, etc. 0. E2 is 0, 1, 0, 0, etc. 0, etc. En is 0, 0, etc. 1. This is the standard basis. Or in other words, if you take any basis elements, E1, E2, etc. En in Rn, every element can be written in Rn can be written as a linear combination of the elements of the basis. So, x is equal to theta 1, theta 2, etc. theta n be an arbitrary element in Rn. which can be represented as a linear combination of on this form with respect to the standard basis. This is trivial. Now we have to consider an arbitrary linear functional which is defined on Rn. So for every x, we have to have f of x. If you are able to understand what is the value of f of x in general, we may have to have a better understanding of the linear functionals in general, which is defined on Rn. Now f of x should be equal to f of theta 1 e1 plus theta 2 e2 plus etc. theta n en. Since f is linear, this can be written as theta 1 times f of e1 plus theta 2 times f of e2 plus etc. plus theta n times f of en. The reason is f is linear and theta 1, theta 2, etc., theta n are constants. If we call this f of e1 as gamma 1, or in general f of ei as gamma I, where I varies from 1 to 3 etc. up to n, f of e1 is gamma 1, f of e2 is gamma 2, etc. f of en is gamma n. Now which is equal to theta 1 gamma 1 plus theta 2 gamma 2 plus etc. theta n gamma n, or summation j is equal to 1 to n theta j gamma j. Since f is linear functional, f of ej is actually a real number. So gamma 1, gamma 2, etc., gamma n are real numbers in general. Okay, so this is a product of linear combination of the product of the real numbers. Theta 1, theta 2, etc., theta n belongs to Rn means theta i's are real numbers. Here gamma i's are also real numbers since f is a linear functional. Now, in order to establish that Rn is isomorphic to its dual, first thing we have to know is we have to have the norm of the linear functional. It should preserve the norm. So, in order to do that, we have to have an understanding about the norm of f. So, to find the norm of f, we have to find modulus of f of x by norm x. So, that's what we are going to use. So, modulus of f of x should be equal to modulus of summation j is equal to 1 to n theta j times gamma j. Now, this is actually less than or equal to summation j is equal to 1 to n theta j square the whole raised to 1 by 2 times summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j square the whole raised to 1 by 2. This can be done because of the Cauchy-Schwarz inequality. Okay. Now, since we consider our elements theta 1, theta 2, etc., theta n belongs to Rn. Rn has the usual distance metric as x. Here norm x should be equal to, by the definition of Rn, which should be equal to summation j is equal to 1 to n theta j square the whole raised to 1 by 2. Okay. Now, instead in place of summation j is equal to 1 to n theta j square the whole raised to 1 by 2, we can actually substitute norm x. So, modulus of f of x should be less than or equal to norm x times summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j square the whole raised to 1 by 2. Or in other words, if you move this norm x onto the left hand side, so this should be equal to modulus of f of x by norm x should be less than or equal to summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j square the whole raised to 1 by 2, where gamma j is equal to f of ej, where j varies from 1 to n, where e1, e2, etc. en are the basis of Rn. So this is, if we call it as equation number 1. Now our objective was to have a better understanding of norm f. Norm f is defined as supremum x element of capital X modulus of f of x by norm x. Now if you take modulus of f of x by norm x for every x, this inequality holds. So each of the elements modulus of f of x by norm x is actually less than or equal to summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j square the whole raised to 1 by 2 each of. So for every x, for any x element of Rn, we have modulus of f of x, where f is an arbitrary linear functional, by norm x should be less than or equal to summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j square the whole raised to 1 by 2. Okay. Now since for each of the elements x, this value is less than this value, which means that supremum of this also should be less than this value. Okay. Now this is true for every x implies supremum x element of capital X, x not equal to 0, modulus of f of x by norm x should also be less than or equal to summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j square the whole raised to 1 by 2. Call this as equation A. Okay. And this is actually norm f. Okay. So we replace that by norm f. That is norm f is actually less than or equal to summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j square the whole raised to 1 by 2. Let us call this as equation number 1. I think this is what we need. So to have a better understanding of norm f, we have found an inequality for norm f which states that norm f is actually less than or equal to summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j square the whole raised to 1 by 2. Now norm f is defined as supremum x element of capital X, x not equal to 0, modulus of f of x by norm x. So which means that norm f is the supremum of modulus of f of x by norm x for any x element of capital X. Since the supremum of a quantity is always upper bound, so norm f should be an upper bound of modulus of f of x by norm x for every x. So this implies we can write modulus of f of x by norm x should be less than or equal to norm f for all x, since it is the upper bound. Now we have already defined f of x to be summation j is equal to 1 to n theta j gamma j. So we substitute that value, that is equal to, that is modulus of summation j is equal to 1 to n theta j times gamma j by norm x should be less than or equal to norm f for all x element of Rn. This is true for every x. So in particular, we substitute a particular value of x to obtain the result. So the result is true for any particular value. So we choose our x to be gamma 1, gamma 2, etc. gamma n. So choose x is equal to gamma 1, gamma 2, etc. gamma n. Okay. So this result is true for this x as well. Okay. So which implies summation j is equal to 1 to n. So theta j becomes gamma j. So gamma j times gamma j, which is equal to gamma j the whole square modulus divided by norm x is summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j the whole square the whole raised to 1 by 2 less than or equal to norm f. Now this is actually a positive quantity, so we do not need modulus. So this is actually equal to summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j the whole square the whole raised to 1 by 2 the whole square. We can write it as such because it becomes 2 by 2, which becomes 1 by summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j the whole square the whole raised to 1 by 2. We should be less than or equal to norm f. Now summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j the whole square is in numerator and denominator. So we can cancel at least one of them. So this should be equal to summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j the whole square the whole raised to 1 by 2 less than or equal to norm f. So if we call this as equation B, A is actually norm f is less than or equal to summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j the whole square the whole raised to 1 by 2. From A and B, we have norm f should be equal to summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j the whole square the whole raised to 1 by 2. We have both the inequalities. So for any linear functional which is on Rn dash or which is defined on Rn, we have norm f is equal to summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j the whole square the whole raised to 1 by 2, where gamma j is equal to f of ej, where e1, e2, etc. en is the standard basis of Rn. Now we have enough tools to proceed with our assumption. So we have to prove that Rn dash should be isomorphic to Rn. This is what we have to prove. So in order to do that, we have to define a function which is from Rn dash to Rn. So let phi be a function from Rn dash to Rn. Now understand that every element in Rn dash is a linear functional. Okay. So phi operates on linear functional. So phi of f should be equal to f of e1, f of e2, etc. f of en, where e1, e2, etc. en is the standard basis, or gamma 1, gamma 2, etc. gamma n. This is our definition. We have to prove that this is actually linear, this is actually 1, 1, and this preserves norm. Now, norm of phi of f should be equal to norm of f of e1, f of e2, etc. f of en. Now, which is actually norm of gamma 1, gamma 2, etc. gamma n. Since gamma 1, gamma 2, etc. gamma n are real numbers, its norm is actually summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j the whole square the whole raised to 1 by 2. Since phi of f is actually f of e1, f of e2, etc. f of en, which is in Rn, which is equal to gamma 1, gamma 2, etc. gamma n, which is in Rn. In Rn, we have this norm. We have already proved that this is equal to norm f. So this preserves norm. That is, norm of phi of f should be equal to norm of f. So our function preserves norm. Now we have to prove that it satisfies the two other conditions as well. It satisfies the linearity and it satisfies the 1-1 property. So next is phi is actually linear. For that, we define phi of alpha f1 plus f2. By definition, this is alpha f1 plus f2 of E1, comma, alpha f1 plus f2 of E2, etc. alpha f1 plus f2 of En. Now, since f1, f2 are linear, where f1, f2 belongs to Rn dash and alpha is a constant. Since f1, f2 are linear, so this should be equal to alpha f1e plus f2e, comma, alpha, sorry, here it is E1, alpha f1 E2 plus f2 E2, etc. alpha f1 En plus f2 En. Okay, so this can be written as, now by the properties of composite addition, we can write this as alpha f1 E1, alpha f1 E2, etc. alpha f1 En components plus f2 E1, f2 E2, etc. f2 En. This can be again written as alpha times f1 E1, etc. f1 En plus f2 E1, etc. f2 En. So this is f1 E1, f1, etc. f1 En is actually phi of f1. f1, f2 E1, f2, etc. f2 En is actually phi of f2. So this should be equal to alpha times phi of f1 plus phi of f2. So we have proved that phi of alpha f1 plus f2 should be equal to alpha times phi of f1 plus phi of f2. So our phi is actually linear. So our function phi from Rn dash to Rn is actually linear as well as non-preserving. Now we have to prove that it is 1-1. So next thing is phi is 1-1. So let f1, f2 two elements in Rn dash. We assume that phi of f1 should be equal to phi of f2, which by definition is phi of f1 is f1 of E1, f1 of E2, etc. f1 of En should be equal to f2 of E1, etc. f2 of En. Now two components are equal if the corresponding two n tuples are equal if the corresponding components are equal. So which implies f1 of E1 should be equal to f2 of E1, comma, f1 of E2 should be equal to f2 of E2, etc. f1 of En should be equal to f2 of En. Now, if you move this on to the left hand side, by linearity property, this implies f1 minus f2 of E1 is equal to 0. Now, f1 minus f2 of E2 is equal to 0, etc. f1 minus f2 of En is equal to 0. The thing which we have to prove is that phi is 1 1 if and only if phi of f1 is equal to phi of f2 if and only if f1 is equal to f2 or f1 minus f2 is equal to 0. Since we have proved that f1 minus f2 of E1, E2, etc. En is 0, for any x in capital, for all x in Rn, x can be written as the linear combination summation j is equal to 1 to n sum zeta j ej. This is the standard format. Since E1, E2, etc. En is a standard basis. Now, f1 minus f2 of x should be equal to f1 minus f2 of summation j is equal to 1 to n zeta j ej. Okay. This by linearity property, this can be written as summation j is equal to 1 to n zeta j times f1 minus f2 of ej. Since f1 minus f2 of E1, f1 minus f2 of E2, etc. f1 minus f2 of En is 0, this is actually zeta j times 0, which is equal to 0. So, we have proved that f1 minus f2 of x is equal to 0 for all x. That is, f1 minus f2 of x is equal to 0 for all x, which implies by linearity f1x minus f2 of x is equal to 0 for all x. That is, f1 of x should be equal to f1 of x should be equal to f2 of x for all x. That is, f1 is equal to f2. So, we have started with the assumption that phi of f1 is equal to phi of f2, which implies f1 is equal to f2. So, phi of f1 is equal to phi of f2 implies f1 is equal to f2 if and only if. That is, phi is 1 1. Thus, our phi is a linear operator from Rn dash onto Rn, which is actually 1 1, which means that null space of phi is actually consists only of 0 elements. So, phi is linear and phi is 1 1, which means that phi of f is equal to 0 if and only if f is equal to 0. That is, phi of f is equal to 0 implies f is equal to 0. All null space of phi consists only the 0 elements. So, by this, since phi is linear, by theorem 2.6.10, we have phi inverse exists, which means that phi is a bijection. For every linear operator which has the property that null space of every linear operator from a normed space x onto a normed space y, which has the property that which is linear as well as which is 1 1, which means that null space consists only 0 element has an inverse. So, phi is a bijection, inverse exists if and only if it's a bijection. So, our operator phi from phi is actually a bijective linear operator which preserves norm, which implies that phi is an isomorphism. So the two spaces Rn dash, which is the dual of Rn, is isomorphic to Rn. That is, the dual of Rn is actually Rn itself. Okay, so this is the proof for the dual. So the first thing we have to prove that we have to get an idea about every linear functional which is defined on capital Rn. For that, we take an arbitrary standard basis of Rn, and we got an idea about norm f. We have proved that norm f is equal to summation j is equal to 1 to n gamma j the whole square, the whole raised to 1 by 2, where gamma j is actually f of ej. Then we, using this, we have defined a function f from Rn dash to Rn, which is defined as phi of f is equal to f of e1, f of e2, etc., f of en. Clearly, phi of f is equal to norm f, and phi is linear, phi is 1, 1, which implies that every linear operator from a finite dimension, from a normed space x onto a normed space y, or a vector space x onto a vector space y, which is 1, 1, is always onto, which means that phi is onto, which means that phi is a bijection. So phi is a bijective linear operator which preserves norm, which means that phi is an isomorphism, which means that Rn dash is isomorphic to Rn. So the dual of Rn is always Rn itself. Even though we do not know about every linear functionals on Rn, it is clear that as a structure, every linear operator on Rn is actually the space Rn itself. So I hope you understood. Thank you.